Welcome back to Don't Quote Us Sports. It is Wednesday, December 3rd, and everybody know we usually give a little just how you doing to start the episodes off, but I just need to get straight into college football.
We've got a million things to talk about. We've got a million things to talk about.
It is top of mind, and I have blistering takes in my head that go start with the what happened this past weekend to all the drama that I'm sure everybody's heard about. But I need to get your thoughts. I just need to talk about it, okay? If that's okay with you.
We're diving in. Forget the formalities. Forget the pleasantries. Let's fucking go.
Okay, so we'll start with a recap of what happened during Rivalry week for those who were living at the kitchen table during Thanksgiving. Couldn't get off the couch. So Indiana beats Purdue 56-3. Texas upsets Texas A&M 27-17. Georgia takes out Georgia Tech 16-9. Ole Miss wins the Egg Bowl 38-19. Utah beats Kansas 31-21. Arizona takes out Arizona State 23-7. Ohio State wins the game first time in 4 years, 27-9. Texas Tech blows out West Virginia 49-0. Oregon takes out Washington 26-14. Oklahoma wins a close one against LSU 17-13. Notre Dame blows out Stanford 49-20. Alabama holds on in the Iron Bowl 27-20. BYU takes care of business 41-21 over UCF. Miami makes a statement, winning 38-7 against Pittsburgh. Vanderbilt caps off their magical run, winning 45-24 at Tennessee. USC wins the Battle of LA 29-10. Virginia continues their march in the ACC 27-7 over Virginia Tech. SMU wins a game they had to win to make the ACC championship out there in California, 38-35. And then Tulane keeps their grasp in the American at 27-0 over my hometown Charlotte 49ers. But with that being said, right before we started recording, they did just drop the latest CFP rankings. I'm not sure if you had gotten a second or a chance to look at them yet.
No, I have not, sir.
Let me run through the updates here. So at the top, nothing changes. 1 and 2, Ohio State 1, Indiana 2. With Texas A&M losing, Georgia jumps up to number 3, and Texas Tech is now in the top 4, in the 4 spot. Oregon at 5. Ole Miss actually jumps up a spot. They are actually ranked above Texas A&M now. So comparatively, they think Ole Miss is a better one-loss team than Texas A&M. Oklahoma stays at 8. Alabama moves up to 9. Notre Dame moves down to 10. So they flip-flop there. That's going to be interesting here when we talk about it in a second. First team out, because remember, we got to save 2 spots for the remaining conference champions, highest-ranked conference champions, because we're still not sure who that's going to be. So the first 2 teams out are BYU at 11, Miami at 12, and then I think those are really the only 2 teams that really have an opportunity to maybe jump in, depending on how these conference championship games go. I think Texas, Vanderbilt, Utah are essentially dead, unless I don't know how they somehow jump in at this point. But in terms of the other highest-ranked conference champions, Virginia's at 17. Duke's obviously not ranked. Tulane is at 20. North Texas is at 24. So the winner of the American is essentially guaranteed a spot. They'll most likely be the 11th seed. And then JMU is officially ranked 25th. So they're above Duke as of right now. So the question becomes, if Duke wins the ACC, will the committee put James Madison in over an 8-5 Duke team that won the ACC. I think it's an easy decision personally, but I've seen crazier things happen with a bunch of morons that call themselves athletic directors being boarded up in a conference room.
Thank you. It feels like they're going to screw everybody, right? It feels like they're going to piss off a lot of people. And here's a couple things I think they're going to do. I think they are going to only give us one non-Power 4 team. I don't think we're getting two. I don't think we're getting a North Texas and JMU in it. I don't see that happening. I think they're going to favor Duke if Duke pulls that off. Does it feel like they may take what's happening at Ole Miss and really screw them over and just pump in a Texas team just because it's Texas in the market? I've had this thought in the back of my head all day long that somehow they're going to put Texas in this and get Ole Miss the hell out of it. I don't know how, I don't know why, but am I alone in feeling that way?
I was curious to see what the committee's thoughts were going to be because they have the clause in there that held Florida State out a couple years ago when Jordan Travis got injured in one of the last weeks of this season, and they got held out after being undefeated and winning the ACC. With Ole Miss actually moving up this week, I think the committee is putting very little into Lane Kiffin's decision to leave from Ole Miss into factor in these rankings. So I think their spot is solidified. I think everybody up through Oklahoma at 8 is solidified. The question is really going to come down to Alabama, Notre Dame. Because the question is going to be, Alabama, they're in if they win the SEC championship, obviously. If they lose, now they're 10-3. And now you have to compare that to a Notre Dame, Miami, and Texas team. Comparing Alabama and Texas would make the most sense, both the top 2 3-loss teams out there. But the question I really am going to have, because you already kind of mentioned it, in how you don't think they're going to put 2 power or group of 6 teams in the American and James Madison, and Duke would sneak in. I will raise you what I think would happen in this scenario.
Hit me.
Is the fact that Tulane or North Texas will get that 11 seed. Let's say Duke wins ACC. I think James Madison gets in. I have this inkling in my stomach. Now, I don't know why. That if that is the case, Miami will jump to number 10, and that head-to-head win over Notre Dame gets them into the field. Because I don't think that committee has the balls to hold out a Power 4 team. Like, you're really going to go into this playoff with no ACC team and set that precedent? Oh, the landscape of college football might as well self-combust then.
You cannot, in my opinion, you cannot put Miami in over Duke. Are they a better team? Yes. Have they earned the right to be in the CFP? No. Because, and again, I lean heavier on you got to play for your conference. But even so, like, Duke earned it. Duke won the title. Duke outranked Miami in the ACC, plain and simple. I don't care. In my opinion, if they push Miami into this thing and leave a champion Duke out, scrap the whole fucking thing. I don't want to see Miami in this thing. I don't think they've done enough to be in this conversation more than other teams have. I'm not saying Duke has done more, but in my opinion, if Duke's playing for the title, they win it and they leave Miami in and Duke out. That's shameful stuff by the committee, in my opinion.
I mean, I'll be completely honest. Let's not sit here and lie or try and pretend to ourselves that Miami is not the better football team here.
Oh, no doubt.
If the reason that we have a committee of human beings is the fact that there's like that subjective human nature to these conversations, right? It's not just whatever these computer formulas spit out, right? Like the computer formulas may tweak things and see it a different way, but then you have the human eyeball test, right? And the human eyeball test, we both know Miami is the better team. And that is what the entire premise of having this committee is, right? And I get the fact that, let's say, Duke does win the ACC championship. I think that would have mattered in the way conferences were previously set up when there weren't 18 teams in a conference and everybody had to play each other. Because let's look at Duke's ACC schedule compared to Miami's. Duke had a cakewalk. Let's be completely frank about it. And one of those losses that they had was to NC State, but it technically wasn't a conference game. It was a non-conference game because of some weird-ass scheduling, right? So technically they have more losses in the ACC, or the same amount of losses in the ACC as Miami does. In complete fairness, right?
Yeah. That's a fair point. It's just, and again, you've said it before. We've devalued conference championships in a massive way to the point where there is an aspect that they don't matter. I still think they do, but I get where you're coming from. Dude, I'm at the point where let's just rank the top 12 teams AP style. Take the AP top 12, put them all into a hat, and you pull ranking. Maybe you set your top 4, but everybody else we're just pulling out of a fucking hat and saying, there it is. That's the matchup. There's no seeding outside of 1 through 4. Because I think a lot of fans, as much as it gives you and I stuff to talk about, I think we're all just kind of frustrated because we think we have an idea of what's happening, and then the committee does something different, and you're like, wait, can they do that? Is that how that works? There's no clear-cut guideline. So at this point, put the fucking names in a hat and start drawing names. Oh, Bama, you're playing JMU round 1 at JMU. Let's ride.
And I think it turns into a bigger conversation because we saw, I don't know if you had saw it, but on Twitter, Alabama, the official football, like about Alabama Twitter account, tweeted like future schedule changes. And that's like what the graphic said. So essentially what it's looking like is all Power 4 schools, those get rid of all major non-conference games imaginable. We won't be seeing a Texas Ohio State anymore because now look at it. If Texas doesn't play that game, they play a cakewalk. They play a UTSA or something, Texas State, something like that, cakewalks. They're sitting at 10-2 right now, and a 10-2 record compared to a 10-2 record from Alabama. They are getting ranked lower because they lost to the best team in the country. Yeah, so what these Power 4 conferences are going to do is they're going to get rid of all of these major non-conference games, and they are going to schedule cupcakes because it doesn't matter to the committee who they beat. They just want to see wins on paper. That's all that matters to them.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of getting rid of some of these games, but not the big ones at the beginning of the year. Like, I hate, and I know you do too, the SEC in like week 10 or 11, and they're playing Alabama against Eastern Illinois. Like, I hate that shit. But you're right, they are going to start scheduling that. This is a fucking shit show. It's just a shit show. Because remember when the ACC didn't have a championship game, and they were getting left out of this shit, and they're like, okay, well, we'll have a championship game then. And then they have one, and now they're going to get left out anyway, potentially. We need something. We need something more concrete so everybody knows where they stand. And it's not a guessing game of bullshit. Because there is a part of me that says Texas should be in the playoff. And I think I'd rather see Texas in the playoff than a Duke. I'd rather see Texas in the playoff than Miami, to be honest with you. But why is this always a clusterfuck every 2 years? Every 2 years we're having these same conversations. A multi-billion-dollar corporation, essentially, and they can't figure their shit out.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting because I don't know if you had seen, but for next year's playoff, they had until like sometime in December to like finalize what that format was going to look like because they were still talking about tweaking it. They gave themselves an extension until sometime in January because you have the Big Ten commissioner and the SEC commissioner swinging their dicks around, arguing that they should be their conferences should be guaranteed no less than 4 spots.
Fuck out of here.
And I just don't know how, like, dude, talk about getting annoyed now. You're literally letting, and I know the best teams reside in these two conferences, but to have them essentially dictating how the postseason format should look like is absolutely ridiculous to me. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's no integrity in this.
No, none. And this is, I've been saying it for well over 2 years now. The NCAA, in most major sports, but most specifically football, needs a head office with a governing body and a commissioner. And I know Saban gets thrown around all the time. Louis Riddick from ESPN, I think that guy could do a bang up job being the commissioner of college football. But that's what this whole thing is screaming towards. And I know a lot of people have been talking about with the NIL, with the transfer portal, all that. This is an absolute need now. It's not a pipe dream. It's not a want. This is a need. If college football is going to continue on this trajectory, we have to have something like that. Would you agree? You think that's bullshit?
Well, I would take it a step further. At this point, college football is so much bigger than every other college sport, and really, it's only college football or basketball that gives it a somewhat run for its money. It needs to separate. It needs to be its own independent body. The NCAA still governs over every other sport, Division I sport, but college football should be independent. With the amount of money at play and at stake year after year and the money that these programs are putting in, it doesn't make sense for them to be grouped up into the NCAA umbrella anymore. There needs to be an independent board with, it's almost like structured like the NFL would be at this point, and truly make it an amateur model where this is operating like the G League for the NBA, because that's what it is, right? You have to do something like that. There needs to be guardrails put into place, not only related to how they're choosing who makes the postseason, but we'll get into it in a second, and coaching changes that are occurring while the season is still going on, and the transfer window, and the amount of money that they're able to put into their rosters, and these unlimited transfers, and yada, yada, yada. Like, you need to have guardrails in place, and I feel like you can't put those guardrails in place that will be sufficient enough if they are still operating under the larger NCAA umbrella, because then you have to take into account the Title IX and all that other regulations and requirements and stuff. That's why I think it needs to stand alone.
And I think 5 years ago, I would have said I couldn't disagree more. In its current state, I would tend to agree with you. I think this snowball's gotten far too big, rolling downhill way too fast. I don't think there's any control. So we do need those guidelines and guardrails, because if not, it feels like this thing could implode a little bit, where it's no, like, in a really bad way, where we're talking about players' unions, and I mean in a big way, and all of a sudden we have lockouts in college football, where you and I are, again, we agree these guys should be getting paid some money, but I could you imagine a lockout in college football?
And that's the difficult thing too, because you have 130 Division One FBS football schools, but to compare Ohio State to the UTEPs of the world, that's not even in the same realm of conversation, and it's not fair, right? So it's almost like you have to split them 50-50, where it's almost like a um, relegation system like they'd have in soccer,
We've talked
where
about that.
split it right down the middle. How many FBS schools there are, split it right in the middle. Based off last year, you take some type of generic ranking, potentially. I don't know how it would work, right? But the top 64 teams or whatever, you're the top of the top this year. You have a chance to win the national title. And then the bottom tier, you also are in your own thing, right? But now they have the opportunity to actually win a national title that they will never otherwise have the chance to, right? Because there are schools like Tulane or like North Texas or like UCF a couple of years ago when they went undefeated that have these memorable, remarkable seasons. And then they're either not given the opportunity to truly compete for a national title or they get screwed one way or the other. Whether it's um, with like the matchups, without the travel and everything. Like Boise State essentially got screwed last year inadvertently by getting a first round bye and then having a month rest and then getting blown out, or not blown out, but beaten by Penn State in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, because how fun would that be? Because Tulane, like you said, Tulane's that team, JMU's that type of team that against light competition, they are by and large better, right? So, like watching those two play in their own national championship would probably be a lot of fun for the viewers, fun for the players, fun for the programs. It's just, could you convince the MAC and Conference USA and the Sun Belt to entitle lessen themselves because now they're going after 2 and 3 star recruits, but they can't get them because they're not D1, or whatever that might look like. Like it's an ego thing a little bit too, of like, hey, we've worked up to being FBS, and now you're asking us to move back down.
But the thing is, you would have to get rid of conferences entirely in this model, right? Where it's literally just like 64 teams, and you guys have to figure out between amongst yourselves somehow of how to schedule those games. But that by and large could mean, based off, if we take this season for example, right? Like Tulane, North Texas, Memphis, all those teams would be in that upper group playing for the highest national title, Division One. And then, but for Sunbelt, it's probably only going to be James Madison. But that means they have the old Sunbelt, quote unquote. They have an opportunity with James Madison to win the highest national title, but then all their other teams still have an opportunity to win that lower tier national title at the same time.
But then you run into this
mean?
problem where like Tulane is only relevant every 10 years, right? Or James Madison's only been relevant for the last 7 years since they kind of came up to FBS sort of deal. Like the problem is these flash in the pan teams. I mean, we were talking about Kent State kind of in this way, 5-6 years ago. Now Kent State is irrelevant. That's the problem of like, where do you put a Tulane? Do you put them in the upper category or lower category? Because every 5 years, yeah, they should be playing up. But the 4 out of those 5 years, they have no business being up with the big boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's where the conversations get hard, because we are definitely not smart enough to have those conversations or figure out what that should look like. But I think we're both in agreement that what we are seeing now is not the best. I wouldn't say product, but it's not there's definitely like enhancements that could be made across the board, but figuring out how to come to an agreement on what that looks like is obviously what's going to be the hardest part. It makes it a near impossibility.
I tell you what, what this CFP situation has brought to light, and more so that we didn't, or I should say, Not that we didn't know this, but the NCAA is driven by one thing, and that is the almighty dollar. Like, that's plain and simple. That's all it is. So that's why when I talk about a team like Texas, who's one of the most lucrative teams in the NCAA in every sport, like, if they sneak in, that's a money play. If Miami sneaks in, that's a money play. You know what I mean? So it's a shame, and it's confusing, and as a fan, it's really hard to buy into whatever this is. We were all so excited when it went to 12 teams, but not knowing that it was going to be this big of a cluster, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think the easiest thing that they can do playoff-wise, if they don't want to change anything else, is you just guarantee all 10 conference champions make the playoff. I don't care if it's fucking University of Louisiana Monroe. If you win your conference, you're in. I don't care if it's a blowout, but at least they have a chance. They are relevant and they get their shot. And then I don't know if it's 18 teams and then you have to try and figure out the 8 at-large teams beyond that. But I think that's the fairest way you can do it with the least amount of pushback from the SEC and Big Ten.
I'm not opposed to that. Like, that is what I would be all about. Because, sure, does ULM have a chance against Ohio State this year? No. But did Florida Gulf Coast in basketball have a chance in one game when they made that run a couple years back? Did Drake have any business beating Mizzou last year in the NCAA basketball tournament? No. And I get we're talking basketball here. But when you allow every conference champion to play for the national title, as I think it should be, you get the chance at a Cinderella because everything's equal now. We are on the same playing field. Let's do neutral site from the jump. And let's see what happens. Let's watch a James Madison make it to the semifinal and really shock the world. Why not? What's the harm? Is it going to stink the opening round every year for the most part? Yeah, but every 4, 5, 6 years, we'll get a story about how the Eastern Michigan Eagles made a run and upset the number 1 team in the country in the opening round. Give me that. That's what I'm about.
Okay, Herb, now that we got the rant aside of whatever the state of college football is now, I want to get into, obviously, what the biggest news in college football from this past weekend was. And that, obviously, was the Lane Kiffin saga. He officially accepted his contract with LSU that will pay him $91 million over the next 7 years. It will make him the second highest paid coach in the country behind Kirby Smart. But beyond that, this is where, obviously, all the drama comes into play, right? Because this kept getting pushed further and further out than expected, right? So once it was official that Ole Miss was not going to be in the SEC championship game, which was final after the Iron Bowl, after Alabama beat Auburn later that day, that was when the news came out. That's when the news broke. And Lane Kiffin also was trying to make a push to continue coaching his team, Ole Miss, through the end of their season because they had essentially guaranteed a conference or college football berth with the win over Mississippi State, and he wanted to see that through, right? Which I think is a fair thing, right? In a vacuum, it's a fair request to make. You started the season with them, you want to see it out with them. And you see other coaches too, like John Summerall, who just got hired at Florida. They're allowing him to continue coaching Tulane through the end of their season. And Eric Morris at North Texas, same thing, allowing him to coach through the rest of the year before going to Oklahoma State. Obviously, this is much different because he's going to LSU, which is a main rival of Ole Miss within the SEC conference. So it's obviously a little bit different. So that's where the athletic director put his foot in the ground and said, no, you're not allowed. I'm not going to allow you to do that. If you accept that job, you're gone. You're done as of that announcement, right? Well, then weirdly enough, then he names the defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, as not just the interim head coach for the rest of the season. He just straight out made him the permanent head coach. No ifs, ands, or buts about that, which I think is an entirely different conversation. And yes, for the rest of this season, I think makes sense. Terrible decision moving forward in the future. Rarely do these type of moves ever work out for the school. But then on top of that, then Kiffin, once that news breaks, essentially gives his entire coaching staff an ultimatum where it's essentially you have until 4 p.m. I think it was on Sunday to be on this plane to Baton Rouge with me, or there's not going to be a spot for you on my staff.
Yep.
And by the time I think Monday rolled around, there was for sure 10 coaches whose bios and everything had already been taken down from Ole Miss's football roster. But just talk about a soap opera that it just didn't need to be. And he had come so far. Lane Kiffin had come so far, and people were actually starting to think he had matured a little bit and started to grasp the seriousness of the position that he's in and everything like that, and then just completely thrown out the window and completely showed that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. He is the same guy he's always been, with always a eye for the limelight, and wants it. It's almost like he wants the media circus of it all.
Yeah. When I look at this, because I've been trying to figure out like who's to blame for all this bullshit. And I've narrowed it down. There's 3 parties that I blame for this whole thing, and one of them is, or none of them are LSU. I don't blame LSU in any of this. LSU identified who they wanted as their coach. They went out and made their offer. They haven't done anything wrong. Now, poaching another SEC school coach, you can feel some type of way about it, but unfortunately it happens every damn year. Every year this happens in the SEC. So I do not blame LSU. The first entity that I blame is Ole Miss for allowing it to get to this point, for even allowing Lane Kiffin to have the itch of leaving, right? And I know they did a lot of the right things. They supported this guy. They gave him a chance. They said they would match contracts. But at some level, I have to blame Ole Miss. The second piece I blame is Lane Kiffin, because you're 100% right. He is a slut for the limelight. If he's not all over the damn place, he's not happy. That's clear and evident. And the third is the NCAA and the current calendar and timeline in which these windows and opportunities to leave exist is disgusting. It is shameful, and it has to be fixed. The NCAA, especially in the football world, is the biggest clown in sports, maybe in the damn world right now. A clown. But I blame those 3 entities for how this thing has gone down. I want to touch on Lane Kiffin as a coach, as a man, maybe. I don't know him personally. I've never met the guy. Okay, so I'm not going to sit here and shit all over his character. I'm going to try not to, at least. But he's
trust me, you won't be the first or the last, because
no,
I don't know what to believe at this point, but Ole Miss PR staff deserves raises across the board. If they were able to keep all these things that we are hearing about Lane Kiffin under wraps for his tenure there, raises all around. They should get the biggest Christmas bonuses ever, because the shit that we are hearing coming across social media now is blowing my mind. How this was happening at a SEC school, and a very good SEC school at that. Since the 2020, they had the 3rd most wins in the SEC behind Alabama and Georgia. And there's plenty of things coming out where they were covering up a lot of his extracurricular activities when he would go skiing a lot. They were finding on the private jets, the facility. He was walking out of his hotel rooms on away games with like 3 young blondes, where players are even seeing him and being like, "Coach, what are you up to?" And he's like, or what are you getting into this weekend? And he's like, them type of thing, which, if true, baller response, like, you can't even be mad. But, like, the fact that all of this, it stayed under the rug, and Ole Miss was completely, obviously just turning a blind eye to it because they were winning, is shocking.
Lane Kiffin, right? You mentioned it already. Like, we had all started to become a fan again. I didn't think it was possible after the whole USC nonsense and all that. We'd started to become fans and started pulling for him like he was an underdog, like he was a feel-good story. We were hoodwinked. Okay, we got pretty womaned in this thing. And the whole hoe to a housewife thing, as much as it pissed him off, it's so true. He is a part of arguably 5 of the worst exits in football history. Tennessee was a nightmare. Okay, the Raiders, nightmare. Fired on the tarmac for USC. A week before the national championship, coaching for Coach Saban, and Saban tells him, why don't you pack your shit up and go home? And now this, the fact that we all just turned a blind eye to all of that and said maybe this time's different, maybe that's on you and me for believing that he could change. I still don't get this move. Can you explain to me, and this is what's been rattling my brain all week about this shit, why is LSU a better job currently in 2025? Why is LSU a better job than Ole Miss?
That's easy. Better facilities, better. They're in the state of Louisiana, which is one of the best states behind California and Texas, where recruits come from. They are in your backyard, so you have that on top of it. Now they get to stay at home, play for their hometown team, or their home state team. That plays into it. I think they get a lot more funding from donors and extracurricular parties out there as well. Because let's not sit here and pretend like Ole Miss, prior to Lane Kiffin being there, was super relevant in the SEC. They were always in that second tier, that mid-tier of SEC teams. Where even LSU, their worst years, they're still sniffing that top tier. The history, the nostalgia, everything. Plus, look at just the stadiums themselves. I think that's a great starting point from the facilities perspective. Texas Stadium holds over 100,000 people. Ole Miss doesn't even hold 70,000.
So, really, what it's boiled down to, in my opinion, it's brand recognition. But I don't see LSU, if I'm thinking about the tiers of the SEC as it currently is and how it has been in the most recent years, the only 2 teams on the top tier, in my opinion, are Georgia and Bama. That next tier features Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, right? Florida at times.
As of right now,
not this year.
As of right now, because of what Lane Kiffin had done, you remove Lane Kiffin from there, and I don't think they're in the same ballpark, though. Let's not sit here and try and pretend. You put both of those schools next to each other and and you walked the street, asked 100 people that actually knew college football, which team, knowing what you know about the schools, which team would win which school is it easier to win a national title at? And they are going to resoundingly state LSU.
I don't disagree with that, but you're there. You're in it at Ole Miss. You have done what
you know how much that took.
So go do it.
But you know how hard that was to even get to that point for this year to even happen at Ole Miss, and the amount of funding that he had to beg for to get the roster that he has. He doesn't have to do that at LSU. It's already given to him. They're already prepared. He doesn't have to do it at Ole Miss
anymore. You can't tell me Ole Miss can't find LSU money, because they absolutely can.
I don't know.
They
I
absolutely
don't know,
can.
But I think LSU is a lot more willing to throw resources at their program than Ole Miss is.
I don't see this as a massive upgrade like a lot of people do. And that's personal opinion. It is what it is, but I just don't see LSU as better than Ole Miss situation wise right now. I just don't see it. And I think your leash was unlimited at Ole Miss and was going to continue to be unlimited. You've got 2 years at LSU, buddy. 2 years to figure this shit out. And here's the only bit that I'm gonna shit on LSU about again, because they did everything right. They went out and got their guy. Did you see what his payout is over this thing if they fire him without cause?
Dude, the most hypocritical shit ever, because you literally had the state governor or whoever it was talking about how ridiculous of a contract it was that Brian Kelly had signed, and then they put zero safeguards in this Lane Kiffin contract. So it's essentially going to be the same thing. He's guaranteed, 80% over like 5 years?
$72 million, essentially. $72 million. That means between Coach Orgeron, Brian Kelly, and potentially Lane Kiffin, if they decide to fire him in 2-3 years because it didn't work, they will be paying out almost $200 million for 3 guys who don't coach for them anymore. That is ridiculous. This is that same AD that's been doing this all over the place, isn't it?
No, I think it's a new AD now.
Was it the old AD that gave Lincoln Riley the deal at USC?
No, it was the one who gave Jimbo Fisher the deal at Texas A&M.
That's what it was. At what point? I mean, this guy's had bad contracts biting him in the ass for years. At what point are we going to start pointing the finger at the AD going, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to turn into such a landscape changing move too. Like this whole coaching carousel. Can we talk about that?
One sec. I wanted to go back to the statuses of these programs, right? Because I wanted to back it up because I feel like there was disrespect for how close it was. So last year, this is for the fiscal year 2024, unsubsidized earned revenue and operating expenses. I don't know what all goes into that, blah, blah, blah. LSU for the fiscal year, their earned revenue was $220 million, which placed them 5th in the SEC. Ole Miss brought in $146 million and actually they were operating in the red last year.
Ooh.
So they brought in $74 million more dollars than Ole Miss. That was pretty interesting. 2023, if we want to go back that far. Oh, that's small to read. Let me see if I can get this better. LSU was 3rd at $199.1 million. Ole Miss was at the bottom, near the bottom, 150.2 or something. So there is a large gap between these two schools.
I just feel like the argument of like, oh, we can win a national championship at LSU. I feel like that's not a valid argument because he's literally in a hunt and a legitimate hunt for the national title at Ole Miss right now. That's what's been just bugging me the most about this thing is just like, you're there, dude. The benefits of all the hard work at Ole Miss and everything that university has done to develop that program even further, it's all come to a head, and they're about to reap the benefits of it. And he says, see, I'm out.
Again, I think that just takes into account, like, I don't like year over year. It's easier to win a title at LSU. I feel like so many dominoes had to fall in place perfectly for this season that Ole Miss had between who they were able to get, like what they were able to receive funding wise, and then how they were actually able to allocate that to the players in the transfer portal and whatnot. When you have this large gap between LSU and Ole Miss, just from a money perspective, they're able to take more chances, larger shots at kids they might not be as sure about, right? That might not pan out. But they're like, oh shit, I have an extra $10 million lying around. Well, I have the opportunity to throw that at them that I wouldn't otherwise have at Ole Miss, right? Because I'm sure if we dove deeper into like each player like on Ole Miss's roster compared to like their NIL and how much they receive. Like Trinidad Chambliss has to be receiving peanuts on the dollar for what LSU would be offering their quarterback. Like Nussmeier this year was probably getting $3-4 million at LSU to return. Whereas Trinidad Chambliss just vastly outperformed whatever that commitment was. And they almost
he's getting like $100K.
You know what I mean?
He's getting like $100K because they thought he was going to be the career backup. Tough.
But yeah,
I just
sorry.
It's just so frustrating. Here's real quick though. Last bits on Lane Kiffin. There's two stories that I want to throw at you that kind of speak about Lane Kiffin as a person. So you saw how he went after a reporter with the hoe versus housewife thing, right?
Yeah.
So that journalist goes on a podcast and says that after that whole incident, he got a number, a text from a phone number, and he believed it to be Lane Kiffin based on the conversation or somebody representing Lane Kiffin who reached out and said, hey, apologies for that. That wasn't the way to go about it. And this journalist, hey, that comment was a little over the line. I apologize. Everything's cool, right? After the announcement comes out, this journalist allegedly, as he claims, got a text from the same number, and it was an AI meme of Lane Kiffin putting down a red and blue housewife hat and putting on, like he's at a commitment ceremony, putting on a gold and purple hoe hat. Like, dude, that's shitty as fuck. You make a big fucking scene, apologize behind closed doors, and then just to be kind of spiteful and bitchy and be a little zesty about it, you send that meme. Like, come on, dude. Like, really?
I mean, at the same time, one, let's not pretend like it wasn't fucking hilarious because I've seen the picture. It was hilarious. And two, he's there's no reason for him to pretend. This is who he is. Like at this point, he's leaning into it. At this point, he is the villain. He is the villain.
That's
why not?
Let me add to the villain.
He's never been punished for anything. He's able to do these things without fear of repercussion. So why would he stop now, Herb? He just got paid $91 million. The dude has the longest leash on the planet right now. That's
fair. He really hasn't been punished for this. He's been fired, but everybody's always giving him another chance. Here's adding to the villain lore.
Can I add funniest part? Oh yeah, add to the villain lore real fast.
Well, did you hear about his dog?
Kind of, yes.
So his dog it wasn't his dog from the beginning. Everybody thought this was his. Yeah, was it a golden retriever, a lab?
Yeah, Juice.
Yeah. Much like other dog live mascots, Juice belongs to somebody else and is lent to Ole Miss as like a live mascot kind of thing. And they just spun that so everybody thought that it was his dog. It wasn't his dog. What sort of evil bullshit do you have to play on that you got to convince all of college football to fall in love with your dog? And it turns out it wasn't your fucking dog.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this entire conversation about the dog is a little dramatic, in my opinion.
It just adds fuel to the fire.
I think Juice is
fuel.
gonna live think Juice is living a perfectly fine life. I was gonna say to wrap it up on Lane Kiffin. Funny enough, immediately after getting announced as the head coach at LSU, his daughter's boyfriend, Captain Whit Weeks, put his name into the transfer portal. I thought that was hysterical.
Was that real? I saw that too. Was that real?
Oh, did I get Chantelled? Fuck.
You
Maybe
may
I
have.
I don't know. I didn't look deep into it.
I saw that and I didn't verify, but I went, there's no fucking way that's real. There's no fucking way that's real.
Damn.
Did you
Maybe
get
not.
got?
I don't know. Also, to go back to, I don't know. I'm not going to dive into it right now. Middle conversation. But going back to our conversation last week, when I'll own it. I got onto your case for talking about his daughter the way that you did. No, everything that you said, I believe was true, is now true. Yeah, sounds like she liked to get around with the football team down there and led to at least one player specifically not playing as a result. After she supposedly might have allegedly given him an STD. Allegedly. Stress the alleged on that.
Listen, I wasn't in the room, so
that's
I
on me.
Confirm.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I tried thinking the best of another human being. You were spot on. You were spot on.
And I'd like to make it very clear for those that didn't listen. I did not call her a hoe. I just said simply that if Lane Kiffin makes a decision on his coaching career based on who's stuffing his daughter, that would be a heinous thing.
Yep. And he ended up. Tell me right now definitively if she is not banging the captain of the LSU football team, he's taking this job.
I mean, yeah.
I feel like that is a whole layer of the onion that is getting completely forgotten about.
Hey,
because remember Florida was a part of all of this as well. Because remember Florida was a part of this at all too. Like they had the same exact offer as both LSU and Ole Miss, and they were in aftermath. They weren't even thought about in this conversation because there's no tie there.
Maybe it was but
Just
Daddy,
saying.
I love him. But Daddy, I love him. So we got to move to Baton Rouge. Who knows?
Okay, but enough with Lane Kiffin. Just when I thought the coaching circus could not get crazier, we have the drama that is going down with the head coaching position at Penn State. And Herb, I don't know how closely you've been following this, but let me get you up to speed. So obviously, Penn State's been in the need of a head coach for a hot second after they fired James Franklin earlier this season. So they finally set their sights on Kalani Sitake. I don't know if I pronounced it that right.
Sitake.
Nice. Sweet. Go me. So they were in talks with him. It was very low key, but then it finally started getting leaked out there. Penn State was offering about $10 million or so. He's currently making only $3 million, and there was talks about how Sitake, this was his dream job type of thing. Well, let me tell you what happened. The Church of Latter-day Saints came in and said, I don't think that's going to happen here, fellas. So the church, if you didn't know, which I didn't, BYU is actually owned by the church.
Correct.
The Church of Latter-day Saints actually owns BYU University. Did not know that. But then you have the CEO of Crumble, of all people. He's a BYU alum, if you didn't know. Essentially tweet out that said, he's not replaceable. We're not replacing him. And he vowed that to get off the sidelines and to get to work. And this turned into the most masterful negotiation I had ever seen before, because not only did Satake get a raise from BYU from his $3 million to $9 million per year, they also are now increasing their NIL by $10 to $15 million per year on top of that. And now you got Penn State still sitting there, hands empty. And I don't know how their fans are not freaking the F out right now, because I saw a graphic. I think signing day is later this week or something like that. I think they had 5 or 6 total recruits or commits in this next year's class, and they are ranked at like 126th in the recruiting rankings, below like Harvard.
Yeah, dude.
And we haven't heard a single thing about anything from Penn State fans about them freaking out yet.
So let me hit this with 2 parts. Okay, let me start with BYU and Coach Satake. Phenomenal coach. Not only did the Crumble CEO come in and say, we're going to get you what you need, the CEO of Built Brands, who might have made that hat that you're sitting on there, said he would match whatever Crumble's going to do because he's also a BYU fan and alumni. So the funding there, I tell you what, USC, Utah, Boise, Oregon, all those teams that recruit heavy Polynesian, congratulations. Because of this funding, every Poly kid that plays football is going to end up at BYU playing for a masterful Polynesian coach at a university with a rich Polynesian history. And listen, this matters in that culture. It absolutely does. If you spend any time around any Samoans, Tongans, Islanders, anything like that, you know that that's a huge deal. So the fact that their money's going up, not just for their coach, but for their NIL funding, dude, every Polynesian kid's going to go play BYU now. That increases an already solid team. That elevates them to, we may be talking about them as a first-round bye in the future, which is massive. So good for BYU, right? The Penn State side of this thing, they have been the most hurt by what's happened in this carousel. You look at the up-and-coming coaches that everyone's talked about. JMU's head coach, Tulane's head coach, USF, Memphis, UNT. All those guys are already committed to coach at other big-time programs. That makes me think that Penn State has a very specific guy in mind. I don't think it's a pro guy, though, because, and I love that you touched on their recruiting right now, it's in shambles. They're going to have to go get a head coach who's already a college head coach, who's got a recruiting base already and can pull kids from that school and fall into Penn State. Do you have any idea who I might be referencing?
No, I don't.
I think this is Manny Diaz out of Duke all day. I think I called it way back when they fired James Franklin. This screams a Manny Diaz move. Familiar with the program, already has a hell of a recruiting class at Duke that can play at Penn State. I think that's where this thing's headed. But, man, has Penn State hurt through this whole carousel.
Herb, I'll actually, on the flip side, I'll argue with you here.
Hit me.
I think Penn State is lost. They were too quick to the jump. They did not realize what they had, or failed to realize what they had with James Franklin at this point. Because if you are going to fire, the reason I say that, because the reason you fired James Franklin is because you know you cannot fire a coach of James Franklin's caliber with not clearly having that next hire picked out, ready to go, no questions asked, right? Because look where they are now. They are in shambles. Like you said, all the big names, they're already gone. Jobs are already filled. All the up-and-comers. So now you're scrambling. So now you're either looking for what you said, which is going to be a second-tier coach like Manny Diaz, which, yes, he does have familiarity with Penn State, but we saw him at Miami where he had the resources, and he fell on his face. How does he play at Penn State? Otherwise, you're going with the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the offensive coach, like Brian Hartline or something like that. How does that play? I think they got a little bit too jumpy for where they were without fully having a plan in place as to what they were going to do. Because you've had Matt Rule already turn him down, Kirk Signetti already turned him down. All of these coaches you're talking about with Summerall, with Golish, with Eric Morris, with Silverfield from Memphis, all of them are gone now. Matt Rule decides to stay at Nebraska. Like, you literally fumbled this entire search from the onset. And now we are going to see that through the rest of this season.
So,
and whoever they do end up hiring, I will say it right now, it will be extremely lackluster for all of us.
Oh yeah, it'll be.
We will all look at this.
Letdown.
Yeah, it will. We'll all look at this and be like, "Wow, they would have been so much better off just keeping James Franklin."
See, I don't agree with that. I was calling for James Franklin head for a while. We both sat here and talked about it. He could not win big games when it mattered most for a blue chip, high level program. He couldn't continue coaching there. Now, you and I were both shocked when he got fired mid-season. I think if they would have waited until last week, this week, and just rode him out with what they had going, I think it would have saved him in recruiting. I think it would have saved them in the long term of finding their coach. But then again, I don't know. This thing happened so fast with all these hires that, I mean, it was just like the guys in those money machines on late night TV, on the game shows back in the 80s. That's what this turned into. I have to think they have their guy in mind right now. And if not, holy shit, because they're in trouble. So, no, I don't agree that James Franklin should have stuck around. It was time. We both agree. I don't think they anticipated how many recruits he was going to pull away from Penn State to go to Virginia Tech. I think they fired James Franklin thinking James Franklin was going to end up taking a year off and waiting another cycle through. But not the case. So this Penn State thing just feels weird. It feels like they're either behind the eight ball or they've just settled into a pick of who they have. Here's a name I want to throw at you, and I think it's a name that could be a potential name, but it'd be really hard to get him out of his current job. Do you think a Matt Patricia, who's the current defensive coordinator at Ohio State, former NFL head coach, do you think a guy like him could take over that program and do something with it? Or do you think his head coaching days are behind him?
Well, if I was Penn State, I wouldn't want him. When have we ever seen a coach that primarily coached in the NFL take over a job at the high and Division I leveling succeeded?
Yeah, there's only one guy. There's only one.
And who was that?
Nick Saban.
And even he wasn't that great of an NFL coach. Let's be completely honest.
Yeah, no, he wasn't.
And Matt Patricia doesn't even sniff Nick Saban's shit after he's done.
No.
So that would be a terrible hire. At this point, I feel like the name to watch out for is going to be Jeff Brom from Louisville.
Ooh.
He's a Pennsylvania native, so there might be pull there. Louisville is his alma mater, though. Might be difficult. Otherwise, I feel like their play really would be to get like a Brian Hartline, because you see what he has done with that wide receiver room since he has been there and the names that have come through there. And I know it's not all entirely because of him, but he has had a hand in not only recruiting these kids, but also developing them. Let's not sit here and pretend like we all thought that Carnell Tate is all of a sudden, who's going to be a first-round pick in this upcoming draft. Any of us saw that coming a couple of years ago because he was buried so far down in that depth chart. But I think just him being hired could lead, like you said, to a lot of recruits.
I
for
just
Penn State.
don't. I think he would be a phenomenal offensive coordinator. He is a fantastic recruiter. I just don't think a school like Penn State is going to give the keys to this thing to somebody without head coaching experience. It feels too big. It feels too
I don't know
important
if
of a
they're.
move.
I, I just don't know if they have a choice at this point. I feel like you either have to do something like that, or at this point, you almost have to just hire a lame duck who essentially, kind of like what Stanford did with Frank Reich this year, where everybody knew it was a 1 year thing because of that whole situation. Where it's almost like that, where it's like, we missed all the best names from this cycle. We're just going to we're going to keep Terry Smith on as interim head coach for this upcoming season, and then we'll try again next year when we will be the biggest name out there, right? Where we're not having to battle in LSU, we're not having to battle Florida, we're not having to battle now Ole Miss, but it wasn't really Ole Miss, but like those named schools who you could argue might be a better opportunity than Penn State.
Yeah. There is one more name, and it just has recently come to light after this weekend. Again, there's NFL rumors swirling that the Steelers would be doing Mike Tomlin a favor by firing him, right? Because he's never going to leave on his own accord. They'd be doing everything right. How cool would it be to see Mike Tomlin coaching for Penn State?
Not cool. I don't know why. Or
I
you
don't think
can
it'll
say
happen.
whatever NFL coach. I don't. You can name any NFL coach. If you argue them for this job, I'm gonna not be a fan of any of them because it just never works out. I'm never going to think it's a good idea.
So no, I don't think it's going to happen. But seeing a guy like Mike Tomlin on the sideline at a university like Penn State, I think would be pretty cool. Again, I do not think it's going to happen. I think that guy is going to be the Steelers head coach until he's dead. But that name has been thrown around, so I figured I'd bounce it off your brain.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Fucking nuts.
Anything else college football you want to touch on real quick?
FCS playoffs. Tune in. It's a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun games. That's all I got to say about collegiate football.
Okay. So then let's jump to NFL. Won't spend as much time on here as we typically do, since we talk so much about college football. But let me give you an updated playoff seeding because there's a lot of changes from this week. So let's start with the AFC. So division leaders are New England at 11-2, Denver Broncos 10-2. Jacksonville Jaguars are now in the lead in the AFC South, 8-4. Baltimore Ravens 6-6. Wildcard teams are the Chargers, Colts, and Bills, all 8-4. And then on the outside looking in, we got the Texans at 7-5. Steelers and Chiefs at 6-6. Then in the NFC, division leaders are the Chicago Bulls or Chicago Bears at 9-3, Los Angeles Rams at 9-3, Eagles at 8-4, Buccaneers at 7-5. Wildcard teams currently are the Seahawks at 9-3, Packers at 8-3-1, and the San Francisco 49ers at 9-4. On the outside looking in, we got the Detroit Lions at 7-5, Dallas Cowboys at 6-5-1, and Carolina Panthers at 7-6. I will be honest, Herb, in the NFC, I think outside of the Packers and Lions flip-flopping spots, I feel like the NFC is pretty much decided outside of whoever wins the NFC South. Because if you don't win if the Bucks or Panthers, if you don't win the NFC South, you're not going to make the playoffs.
Sure.
So I think that one is pretty locked in terms of the teams. The seeding will just change. AFC, I feel like this is going to change a lot still in the next couple of weeks. So that will be interesting. But first, I just want to go back for the listeners who weren't aware. My in-laws were in town this week, and my wife's dad is a big Rams fan. So since they were in town, we decided to go to the Rams-Panthers game that was happening here in Charlotte, which was a jolly old time until it started raining sideways on us.
Did you
not
stay?
super
Hold
fun
on, hold
when
on,
it's
hold
40
on.
degrees outside.
Were you a real fan, and did you stay through that shit?
I stayed the third quarter wearing a poncho out there, but our group only had 2 ponchos for the 10 of us. So the rest of the party was not out there watching, and they decided it was time to leave. So I, in turn, had to leave. Not by choice. Not by choice.
You would have stayed through double zeros on the clock.
Yeah, why not?
Hey, proud of you.
Have nothing else to do.
Proud of you. Really, really proud of you for that.
But I felt like this was a perfect time to go back to a topic that we had talked about at the beginning of the NFL season. And that's, if you remember correctly, the weird coincidences with the Carolina Panthers. And if you're not familiar with it, let me jog your memory. So, in 2003, funny enough, Ohio State wins the national championship. The Panthers finish that season with a losing record. They open the next season against Jacksonville, and Jennifer Lawrence gets a divorce. Odd. Why are you bringing that up, Isaiah? Well, the Panthers go to the Super Bowl that following season in 2004. And you're like, okay, Isaiah, why does that matter?
Wait.
Well,
hold on. Pause.
Jennifer
Jennifer who?
Lopez.
Gotcha. Locked
J-Lo.
in. Sorry. I was hung up on that. J-Lo. Got it.
So you're like, how's that? What's that matter? Well, in 2015, Ohio State wins the national title. The Panthers finish with a losing record. They open the following season against Jacksonville, and Jennifer Lawrence gets another divorce. And the Panthers in the following season make it to the Super Bowl. Which brings me to this year, in which Ohio State won the national title. Last season, the Panthers finished with a losing record. The Panthers opened this season with a game against Jacksonville. And guess what? Jennifer Lopez got another divorce. Oh, she did.
We're putting the mortgage on Ohio State. We're putting every dime we've ever made on Ohio State.
I think you completely misinterpreted everything I just said right there. No, we are putting all of our money on the Panthers to make it to the Super Bowl.
As opposed to, revert 2025 Ohio State. Cool. I'm in it. I'm in with you. Listen, this is advanced analytics right here. Okay, folks?
But I just had to throw that out there because I did want to talk about this game. And I just thought that was a funny coincidence that there's still legs to this. But that might have been the Panthers' best game of the entire season. Bryce Young might have had his best game as a starter in the NFL in that game. And I still find myself asking the question every single week, are the Panthers even good? Because we have seen every single form of this team, I feel like. We have seen them beat 2 of the best teams in the NFC, in the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Rams. We've seen them get their absolute dicks pounded in by the Buffalo Bills at home, of all team. It feels like they always play to the level of competition that they are playing. They're playing the Los Angeles Rams. They're going to play like one of the best teams in the NFL. They play against the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to play like a 500 team. They play against the Cleveland Browns. Oh, nobody wants to watch that game. You know, like they are literally playing to the level of their competition each and every week. And it just is so confusing to me.
And I think this is going to sound bad, but I don't mean it badly. The Carolina Panthers are so young and so I don't want to say ignorant, but ignorant in terms of what they've got going on. That I truly think it is just a bunch of 20-some-year-old kids out there just going out and balling. Obviously, there's structure and shit like that, but you get what I'm saying? Like, they are so ignorant to the fact that that's Matt Stafford playing across from you. It doesn't quite register. It's not that they don't care. It's just, yeah, dude, we're going out and playing a football game. I think they're that young and that naive to do something here. Now, I will say I don't think this was like, oh, the Rams are a fraud. They lost to Carolina. No, Carolina played a hell of a football game. I think they caught the Rams. The Rams might have been looking past Carolina a little bit and thinking playoff and thinking, hey, this is a team we're going to beat. We should win. I think they got caught. I think you saw it in Stafford's face watching the broadcast of like, what is going on right now? Like, why is this happening? There were moments of that, but I think the Rams are going to be fine. But I think Carolina is just almost dumb enough and young enough to just go out there and make some noise and have fun doing it. They are a fun team to watch, dude. I'm a little jealous.
But that leads me into my bigger question, right? And piggybacks off my comment I had made about Bryce Young. Best game that he's probably played as an NFL starter. We are going to have that conversation, or not us specifically, but the Panthers management of, do we pick up his 5th-year extension? Because he is currently completing 63% of his passes, just a hair over 2,300 yards, 18 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 87.9. Not great per se. So on pace, he's on pace for just over 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 12 picks. His passer rating, let me verify this real quick because I want you to be able to quote this. His passer rating currently has him as a ranked 23rd in the league. So the question becomes, do the Panthers pick up that 5th-year option? It would be about $26.5 million. That's the question.
And I think they have to. Because I think if you're the Panthers sitting there, you sit there and say, okay, it's going to cost us 25, 26 mil. What are we going to find on the open market at 25, 26 million that would be better than what we have now? Taking into account there's going to be an adjustment period. We're going to have to teach this guy our scheme. The chemistry is going to have to continue to develop with Tet, with Xavier, with the running backs. Like, you have to take all that into consideration. I don't think you're going to find the value you're looking for at 25 million that's better than Bryce Young has been for you. Are you going to have to accept there are going to be ups and downs? Yeah, you are. This is not a team and this is not a quarterback that's going to go undefeated ever or win you 15 games in a season. It's just not going to happen. But if you can compete at 10, 11 wins, are you going to find anything better out there? I don't think so. Not the way the market's set. You're certainly not going to find anything better in the draft this year. I'll tell you that much.
I agree with you. I think this is becoming an easier and easier decision the more games that they win. It may not always look pretty, but they're winning games. So I agree with you there. And I still think there's something there with Bryce Young. We have to remember, outside of Ted McMillan out there, because this just blew my mind as I was going through the Panthers stats, we talk about how there's no offensive weapons there. Chuba's had a down year. He was injured. Thankfully, Rico Dowdle slurped some of that juice in the locker room that they had for Space Jam, some of Michael's special sauce, because without him, I don't know where they would be. But then you get to the receivers, right? So you have McMillan. He has been having a great year. 57 catches, 826 yards, 6 touchdowns. The next most receiving yards on that team is Leggett And you want to guess how many yards he has?
400, 500 yards, if that. 500 is probably steep.
Not even close.
But
287 yards spread across 11 games. Their third leading receiver is Rico Dowdle, the running back, who wasn't even the starter until midway through this season. So, what I'm trying to say is essentially get more weapons around him, and then truly judge what Bryce Young is, because we are going on year 3 where he seriously has lacked elite weapons at his disposal. I'm saying go draft another wide receiver. Go pay money to somebody in free agency. Get weapons out there, and then let's judge what Bryce Young is.
And you are 100% right. For the first 3 years, he had no weapons. This year, there is a semblance of weapons. Ted McMillan looks like a number 1 receiver. That's great news. You got a 2-headed monster in the backfield now. You're going to keep him around for next year. That's great news. I would love to see them go get, if they want to draft, go get Carnell Tate in the first round. Why not? You go back-to-back receivers in the first round, you're sitting pretty. Okay, we got other needs in the draft. We might like an O-lineman better. Okay, there's a guy named George Pickens that might be out of Dallas. We don't know yet. We don't know where his head's at. Could you imagine George Pickens, Ted McMillan, and Xavier Legette? That's a pretty formidable receiver core. And all of a sudden, Bryce is throwing for 3,800 yards and 30 touchdowns, 40 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, pieces are starting to put together. Oh, Bryce has really developed. No, Bryce has been this guy. You didn't give him anybody to catch the damn ball. I like
Facts.
Bryce. I would argue I like Bryce more than I've ever liked Kyler Murray at this point. And I know we've had that discussion.
I will always just have a soft spot for Bryce Young for what he had to deal with his first season and a half-ish in the NFL, where he was just made the scapegoat, and with how bad he looked, it was just like very sad. And then you could see him start to like get that passion back for the game. So I just like to see him succeed at this point, because I think he's super well intentioned, super well mannered, and just a great guy in general. So I do enjoy seeing him be successful.
Did you ever hear who he accredited kind of that turnaround and mindset for?
Rod Wave.
Maybe. No. He called Saban. He called Nick. And what I had heard what I read in the article was that basically Saban told him, I didn't recruit you because I thought you were a bad quarterback. I didn't tell all these NFL teams that he should be the number 1 overall pick because I thought you were a bad quarterback. So go out there and be the guy that I recruited and the guy that I've been hyping up, and go be Bryce fucking Young. And all of a sudden, I think it was just insecurity and doubt. I mean, Bryce Young had to deal with the Sam Darnold and the Baker nonsense and all that goofiness. I mean, they were almost out on this kid after 6 games. You remember that? Where they're like, oh, God, maybe this isn't the guy. Give him a second. Give him weapons. I like Bryce Young. Do I think he's going to be an MVP? He's going to be the next Burrow, Josh Allen? No, I don't. Do I think he's going to be a really formidable starting quarterback for the next 5 years? Yeah, I do. Pay that kid and pay him what he's worth, because that guy's going to lead your franchise and at the worst be an elite game manager.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep, I agree.
I tell you what, I can feel your allegiance shifting a little bit to a team, from a team with no quarterback to a team that might have a little something at quarterback. Are we pushing to be full-fledged Panthers fans here?
No, that's not how this works. That's not how NFL fandom works. You and I both know that.
Yep. I just want to make sure.
We have to pick our allegiances at a very young age, and then you have no say. You don't get to change. If you are a true fan, once that decision has been made, you're stuck with it. That shit is written in ink. And I have written the Minnesota Vikings in ink. I am stuck with this dog shit franchise for the rest of my life. My only hope and dream is that they somehow win a championship in whatever lifetime I have left. So hopefully I live to be old, super, super old and healthy. I'm talking hundreds, because we might not win a Super Bowl before then. Herb, I'll be completely blunt with you. There's a lot of doubt creeping into my head right now, and it doesn't get more enjoyable as time goes by.
Let me shift this back to some positivity for you real quick though. Do you recall like when you decided to be a Minnesota fan? Like, was it just being born and raised in Minnesota and like you were just indoctrinated, or do you have a moment of like, oh, I'm a Viking fan?
No, just indoctrinated to it, just seeing it around everywhere. Like, nobody in my family is like super big Vikings fans at all. Like, they're aware of them. Like, when they're good, they know, but it's not like they follow them like I do, type of thing. It was just, I was born in Minnesota, so I kind of felt like I had to, type of thing.
See, have I told you how I became a Titans fan?
Yeah, it has to do with some offensive linemen, doesn't it?
No. So growing up
But that
outside
helped.
of yeah, for sure. Growing up outside of Chicago, I should have been a Bears fan, but I was raised by a bunch of Packer fans. So I grew up watching the Packers. But in 2001, when I was 7, 8 years old, Madden had just come out, and Eddie George was on the cover of Madden 2001. And playing that game made me fall in love with the game of football. And I remember holding it, and my dad goes, "So who's your favorite team?" And I go, "That one." And my dad goes, "That's the Tennessee Titans." I said, "I'm a Titans fan." And ever since, here we sit 24 years later in pain and misery with the tanking Titans. God, what a moment. But if I could go back and change it, no, I wouldn't. Not even a chance.
See, that's even worse from you, because you made the choice. You made the willing choice of that team. You could have been a Patriots fan. You could have been a Steelers fan. You could have been a San Francisco 49ers fan. All these teams that have a Chiefs fan. All these teams that have won and had great success over the years. And you picked the fucking dog shit Tennessee Titans because of a player on a Madden cover.
But the cool part is, I'm probably the only Titan fan you know.
That's not cool. That's just like,
oh, I love it.
Random.
Living in the
just
Midwest,
extremely random.
Everyone's always talking about the Packers or the Vikings or the Chiefs, and they go, "Hey, Herb, how the Titans doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, my time to shine. We stink."
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you get put on the spot to talk about how dog shit your franchise is.
No, because
it doesn't sound enjoyable.
Surprisingly, as a Titans fan, nobody sits there other than you sits there and tells me how bad the Titans are. They go, "Oh, okay," and I'm like, "Yeah." Most people have a lot of pity for us Titan fans, so really, it's not. We don't have to take a lot of shit. We just got to have the "You all right?" conversation.
I don't know what you expect. Do you want me to feel bad for you? Boo-hoo.
No.
I have my own problems, but I have my own fucking problems, buddy.
I'd rather be a Titans fan right now than a Vikings fan. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. I don't think that's remotely true, because I don't even think you can definitively say Cam Ward is better than J.J. McCarthy right now.
He is definitively better than J.J. McCarthy.
I don't think you can definitively say that. Cam Ward has been dog shit. Cam, you're so lucky that there's been so much other shit going on in the NFL that the fact that Cam Ward has completely sucked donkey cock this entire season has been completely swept under the rug.
See, nobody's talking about it. It's pity.
Awful.
It's pity.
And yes, you are so lucky that there is not another quarterback that is just blowing it out. Like Jackson Dart has been really good, but he's been injured too much to really have that conversation, and his team hasn't been good enough. But if there was a Jaden McDaniel or Jaden Daniels out there having the season he did last year, and Cam Ward was having this season, we wouldn't hear the end of it. We wouldn't hear the end of it.
Do you know how I know that Cam Ward is a definitively better quarterback than JJ McCarthy right now? Because people aren't having that conversation about Cam Ward because they'd rather have the conversation about how trash JJ McCarthy's been and how fucked up that quarterback room is.
Fun fact, JJ McCarthy's younger than Cam Ward.
I think I knew that. Because JJ is 23 and Cam's 24.
Cam Ward has played 12 games. He has 7 touchdowns.
How many does JJ have?
6.
7 beats.
Well,
6.
if you want to count rushing, if you want to count rushing, he has 8 total. JJ, I believe, total has 8 as well.
Okay. Yeah, how I mean the Max Brosmer thing. Yeah. I'm not gonna hang you on this. Just I mean we knew this was coming, or was there a semblance?
No, this was best case scenario. This was best case scenario. It answered a lot of questions of like why he hadn't been starting, and now we don't have to worry about starting him when JJ's healthy. Like there's not going to be any sort of controversy. Also answers the question of why we were throwing Carson Wentz out there with essentially two arms at his side, barely able to lift them. Yep. So I give them credit. I give Carson Wentz a lot of credit for being able to play as long as he did. So we didn't have to see more of this. That was best case scenario for us. I'm glad it failed as significantly or as magnificently as it did. So I don't have to worry about all these problems in the future.
I think that's fair. I just want to see where real Vikings fans' head were at with that whole thing. I mean, this season's a wash, right? You're bailing on the season. It's let's go for a high draft pick.
Yeah, and then it's a terrible season for that because there's too many dog shit teams out there. We are going to bottom out this season, have the worst possible outcome, like those range of outcomes that we are expecting going into this season. And I think I said the worst we would do is probably 7 wins, right? We're going to do worse than that. And we'll be lucky to get a top 10 pick.
Yeah, it's tough. And you just know JJ McCarthy's going to come with that bullshit of we're going to go out there and compete and win games. And everybody's like, fucking please don't.
Honestly, to be honest, I don't care if they win or lose the rest of the season. It's all about performances at the end of the day at this point. Because we truly just need to figure out. I already know what the plan for this offseason is going to be. It's going to bring in a veteran that will compete similar to Daniel Jones did this past offseason with Anthony Richardson and see what happens. There's no way we're going into the next season as JJ McCarthy as the definitive starter, no questions asked, and we're going to be stuck with this quarterback situation that we've had to deal with this year. The name that I am most intrigued by, Herb, hear me out, Kyler Murray.
I was just thinking that. Oh.
But do you know why I know that won't happen?
Money.
No, because I think he'll get cut, so then the Vikings won't have to pay him as much. It's truly for the fact that if you bring him in, he almost has to become the starter. Because we've seen it so far in Arizona. He refuses to be the backup. So I don't think he'd be able. I don't know if he'd be willing to come to Minnesota without definitively being told, "Hey, you will be the starter this season."
Yeah,
But shit, dude, give me Jameis Winston for a year. That would be electric.
You're asking for Jameis and you're going to get Russ, buddy. Watch what you wish for. Careful now.
Hey, we've done crazier things with old-ass quarterbacks who everybody thought or had left for dead.
They
Look
just-
what Randall Cunningham had his best season of his career with the Vikings in '98. Brett Favre had the best year of his career with the Vikings in 2009.
So
It's happened before.
Are
I'm
you
not going to
angling
say it
for
won't
Aaron
happen
Rodgers?
again.
Are you angling for Rodgers? Are you complete the Infinity Stone arc?
No, because the other two quarterbacks that I just mentioned could actually still pass the ball down the field.
True.
Aaron Rodgers can't even push the ball 5 yards down the field at this point.
Well, hey, they just fixed that problem. They just got your boy Thielen. The Steelers fixed that's the solution, buddy. They got Adam Thielen. This solves all the problems. Dude, there was a tweet out there that it was something like watch Mike Tomlin need a true number 2 receiver and then go out and get a 2018 Pro Bowler that doesn't matter anymore. Oh, Thielen.
Oh, don't even get me fucking started with that.
That's a whole nother animal. I don't know if we have time for.
We gave up a 26 fifth rounder and a 2027 fourth rounder to get Thielen, a conditional 26 seventh and a conditional 27 fifth for him to catch 8 passes for less than 100 yards. On top of the fact that we spent a third round pick on Tay Felton from Maryland, who has 0 catches for 0 yards this season.
Yep. Tough. Real tough.
Not great, some might say.
The opposite of what you were hoping for. The exact opposite of how that was supposed to go. Oh.
Oh my god.
Last thing in the NFL, I need to amend from last week. You had asked me about the AFC, like who's that team? And I took the Colts, and you made a great point that they were frauds. I now have to eat a little crow and join you in that. While I don't know that fraud is the word I would use, this is a team with some questions now. I know that Houston defense is fantastic, but that is a team that you should have beat if you want to continue propelling this thing forward. So I will join you in the Patriots line here because the Pats are cooking and cruising. God, he looks like Tom Brady out there, doesn't he? That whole clone thing isn't getting any easier to defend against.
Every time he gets brought up, I get sad. Because I remember the quarterback I got stuck with from that draft.
Yeah.
I just get sad.
So, but no, I'll eat crow on that. The Colts got exposed once again by a okay team, not even like a top tier team, an okay team with a really good defense, and they got exposed, man.
Yep. Not making the playoffs.
Maybe not. Not if they continue this trend. So,
dude, I'm telling you, they won't make it. They got Jaguars still for 2 games. Texans still in Houston. And then they still have games against the Seahawks and 49ers.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they will not make the playoffs.
Oof. I think JT's got to find that traction again if they want to do anything. He's been a little quiet the last couple games, so unfortunate, but I will own that one.
Jacksonville.
Go ahead.
Jacksonville is in the driver's seat. They have 2 games against the Colts. All you have to do is split those games. And then you have games against the Jets and Titans, which should be guaranteed wins. And then a game at Denver. Let's call that a loss. But that means that they would go
4-2.
3-2 the rest of the way. 3-2. 1-2. Yeah, they split with the Colts. 3-2. So 11-5. Can we find 3 wins for the Colts? Jaguars, 2 games. We already said they would win one of those. Do they beat the Seahawks in Seattle?
No.
Do they beat the 49ers at home?
Maybe. That's the closest one in that.
At Houston.
If you couldn't beat them at home, I
so.
don't know how you're going to beat them in Houston. Yeah, that's tough.
I'm just saying. And then Houston. Can we find 4 wins for Houston real quick to make it interesting? Against the Chiefs this weekend.
In Arrowhead or in
That
Houston?
has to be a no, right?
Arrowhead or Houston, though?
At Arrowhead.
No, that's a loss.
Houston or Arrowhead. Arrowhead. Okay, but then they have home games against the Cardinals and Raiders.
Wins.
And then they beat the Colts week 18. Can they go to LA and beat the Chargers week 17 to make it interesting?
You know, with this Herbert surgery thing, by then he should be fine and good to go. Could
They
that
could
lead
do
to
it.
a hiccup? They could. With that defense, they could. Is Houston going to poke their nose into this thing?
That defense against an offensive line that's been in shambles all season without their 2 all-pro tackles. They could win that game easily.
They could. Houston might.
I'm
Houston
telling you
might
that
sneak this thing.
AFC South is about to be crazy. And don't forget, they've won 4 in a row now.
Yep.
They're hot.
They're hitting their stride at the perfect time. This is exactly when you want to be building to the top.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, I don't got anything else NFL today, but I heard there's a victory lap that you wanted to take to wrap up the show.
Yeah, let's jump over to the National Basketball Association. Okay, I get to take a victory lap in a big way. When we were sitting here talking about the draft, okay, and the Chicago Bulls decided to take the 18-year-old Frenchman, Noah Essengay, one pick before the New Orleans Pelicans took Derek Queen, the forward center out of Maryland, All-American, great player. You remember how pissed I was? Because I was sitting here saying Derek Queen fits on the Bulls. There's a place for him to play the 5 along with Buzelis at 4. And like this could be a fun young team running and gunning, making plays. I got clowned for it in the comments. I got ripped apart for it on the comments. Can we take a little look at where they're at? Because I don't know if you've paid attention the last 2 weeks, but Derek Queen is fucking hooping. This guy looks like he is the future centerpiece of the New Orleans Pelicans. He plays a little like Jokic, where it's kind of slow, like you're playing in water, but it works. He's an elite passer for a big. He posterized Jonas Valanciunas. I know it's not a huge name, but put him on a poster. I mean, Derek Queen's averaging 12 points, 6 boards, 3.5 assists. He had 30 on Jokic a month ago. This is a kid that can hoop, especially with now the Zion Williamson injury, which big shocker there. Nobody's jaw's on the floor that he got hurt again. So now Derek Queen's play is only going to go up. Isaiah, can you take a stab at what Noah Essengay has done for the Bulls this year so far?
Couldn't tell you the slightest.
He has played a total of 6 NBA minutes, gone 0 for 3 from the field, and has registered 1 steal. He has played in the G League more than he has played up with us. The number 12 pick, when we had to go get a guy that had to contribute this year. Now, in the G League, he's averaging 23, 8, and 2. Not bad, but you're playing in the damn G League. He's also 2 inches shorter than advertised. I thought we were getting KD build, 6'10", lean, could shoot the ball. This kid's 6'8". What happened? The French use a different measuring stick than we do. I'm right, and I hate that I'm right. We said Noah Essengay was a clown pick, and it was a clown pick, especially when you watch Derek Queen out there balling out, man. It's frustrating, but I'm going to take this victory lap because I called this one.
I have no problems with that. I will say, when they did draft him, I believe everybody knew he wasn't going to immediately contribute, even though everybody thought that Chicago should target somebody that could. So taking that into account, right, I will say I'm not alarmed yet as to what he has not done in the NBA. Because, like you said, he is playing well as one of the youngest players in the G League, which, yes, grain of salt, but to do that at 18 does give you some hope that he will be able to do that in the NBA sooner rather than later, obviously. But remember, Derek Queen is 2 years older than him. So to see him come out, and he played high-level competition in the Big Ten last year. So I'm not as surprised to see his game transition as well to the NBA more immediately compared to SNK, who was even playing in the top league over in wherever he was playing last year.
No, he's playing in the Spanish
No.
2 League. He's playing in the Spanish 2 League.
Yeah. So exactly. So I think it was always going to take some time for him to get a feel for the level of competition here. So I'm not alarmed yet, but I do understand the frustrations, and I will allow the victory lap right now. But remember, regardless of who the Bulls drafted with that pick, you guys were going to finish between 38 and 42 wins regardless and be playing for a 6 to 10 seed. So It's okay.
Well, I appreciate you letting me taking my victory lap. I don't often take them, so when I get to take them, I appreciate that. What a safe space.
Of course. I know. I try and make you feel comfortable. Feel free to say those things that are on your chest. That otherwise would have been hidden in the darkest corners of your mind, haunting you.
Just repressed, just pushed down.
Mm-hmm. This is a podcast where we destroy masculine, the stereotypes.
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, we're going to be fragile on this podcast. Say our deepest, darkest fears, the things that we're truly scared about related to sports.
That's Derek Queen being a freak.
But Herb, any shout-outs you have before we wrap here?
Huge shout-out, our alma mater. Don't know if you caught the news, but the live mascot bulldog, Griff 2, is going to be retired in the beginning of next year. Congratulations. I've been through 3 bulldogs in my Drake time. Shout out to Porterhouse, the OG, but congrats to Griff 2 for his retirement upcoming.
Well deserved. He's going to be at the top of the pedestal of Drake Live mascots. And it's going to be pretty hard to replace him with the success that we had during his tenure.
He was a good one. Porterhouse is still my number 1. Shout out Porter.
It's hard to beat the first, but the amount of championships that we brought with Griff 2 shouldn't. You could write stories. You could write books about it.
We need to do a deep dive real quick. We need to do a deep dive and see if he is the winningest live mascot.
What's the criteria? Live mascot.
Live mascot during their tenure as the live mascot. How many championships has that university brought in? Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, swim, the whole 9. We'll have to do some look at that. Because what you're Googling is going to pull up like Bevo as a whole at Texas. How many is Bevo as a whole? I'm talking about a specific animal.
Yeah. The first thing it brought up was Uga from Georgia. Sure. But it's just all the Ugas put together.
For next week, I'm going to put that together. I'll do the research. I'll crunch the numbers, and I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, I might have found it. Well, this is just for SEC. This is just for SEC schools. But the number 1... Oh, fuck. It's Roman numerals. XV. XV 11. Is...
15.
Yeah. Bevo 15. He was... She... I don't know. That's horns.
Bevo's a she.
Well, I don't know what his win percentage was, but he was number 1 on this list. So
I'll crunch the numbers. I'll report back.
Okay. Sounds good.
You got any shout outs this week?
Nope, I don't. Had to think about it? Nope, I don't think I do.
All right, yeah, then tell me this: what's the best Thanksgiving food you put in your face this week? What was the dish?
My cousin's mashed potatoes. No doubt.
Absolutely. Love the potato.
Those things went hard. They went hard. A lot of butter. Lots of butter.
Hell yeah.
Okay, Herb, that wraps on another episode of Don't Quote Us Sports. Make sure to leave us a like, comment, subscribe, follow, tell somebody you know to give us a listen. And if not, we'll catch you on the next one.
See you.
Peace.